Praise. The first letter in the word P-R-A-Y stands for praise. When we come to pray, we should start by praising God. Psalm 100, verses 1 through 4 says, "Make a joyful shout to the Lord, all you lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that the Lord, he is God. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his name." In verse 2 it says, "Come before his presence with singing." And in verse 4, I like the words, "enter into." In other words, this is how you enter God's presence. This is how you begin your prayer. When you come to God, you start with praise, singing and thanksgiving, or, as the Message Bible says, enter with the password, "thank you." This is so important that when Jesus taught his own disciples to pray, he emphasized this point. He began his model prayer in similar fashion by saying, "And when you pray, pray after this manner, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." He begins with a note of praise, a note of glorifying God and blessing his name. When we pray, we ought to begin by thanking God for his goodness in our life, thanking him for who he is, telling him that we love him, lifting our hands in praise to his holy name, lifting our voices in adoration, and singing and praising him. Praise helps your focus. Several things happen when you start your prayers by praising God. First, it puts your focus in the right place. It takes your focus off yourself, your problems, and the circumstances that surround you, and puts your focus on God, which is exactly where it should be. Think of it this way: your focus should be on the one who is your answer. Now, perhaps you are like some people who are extremely problem conscious. They are so conscious of themselves and their problems that they lose consciousness of God, which is a perfect breeding ground for doubt, discouragement, and depression. But praise, more than anything else, will focus your attention right where it belongs, on our great and awesome, all-powerful God. Praise brings God's presence. The second thing praise does is bring God's presence. Psalm 22, verse 3 tells us that God inhabits the praises of his people. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 5 declares that God meets the one who rejoices. In James chapter 4, verse 8, we are given the principle that God draws near to the person who draws near to him. And I don't know a better way to draw near to God than through worship and praise. Praise brings God's presence. And when his presence comes, it sometimes comes in a tangible, discernible way. I remember many years ago living in Mexico as a very young believer. In fact, I had been saved less than a year. And of course, when you've been saved less than a year, you know everything. I was helping with some crusade work and preaching in some small churches. I was preaching just as boldly as you please, but with a touch of arrogance. I was preaching things like, God is going to meet your needs, and challenging people to stand in faith. While it was all true, I became quite presumptuous and ended up, due to my zeal and lack of wisdom, down in Mexico with no money. Without any money, I ran out of gasoline for my vehicle. And then I ran out of food. I was in this condition for weeks and weeks. I had hardly anything to eat during that time, not because I was spiritual and fasting, but because I had no food. I can still remember the day someone gave me an egg.